everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video review. And in the lead up to the upcoming Superman 2025 movie, I thought it would be a good idea to take a look back at all of the previous live action Superman films released cinematically. And we will start of course with the first, most famous and perhaps greatest movie of them all, and that is Superman the movie, which was released back in December the 10th, 1978. It was, of course, the first major cinematic release of the greatest superhero character of all time, charting his all too familiar origin story of first being a newborn baby on the planet Krypton, sent away by his family to planet Earth following the planet's destruction, arriving in Smallville, Kansas, being raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent, learning and developing his powers before discovering his Kryptonian heritage, then assuming the identity of first news reporter Clark Kent in Metropolis, alongside becoming the world's protector and superhero known as Superman. And when looking back at the movie, which I've seen so many times like everybody else, it really is still the first example of visualization a comic book character to the big screen on an epic scale, which is very fitting because it's Superman. And that's exactly what it asks for any comic book movie, particularly this character. And the ultimate requirement, I feel, is to truly embody the character in the right way. Truly do justice in terms of both the nature of the character and also the story and source material. And in terms of this film, this is where we are really looking at the gold standard, encapsulating everything that is special and what we really should be seeing from a Superman movie overall. It works, of course, because it completely takes its character seriously, which was the mantra from the start by director Richard Donner, to provide verisimilitude, to treat the character as if he's real, not in terms of being a realistic entity within the world, but look at the character as if he is existing in a real world environment and how that character would affect the overall world that he has been involved in. And the film itself has absolutely everything from spectacle, drama, emotion, romance and humour. There's a real scope and awe and wonder and beauty and gravitas, and it's absolutely beautiful to see. I refer especially to really the first 30 to 40 minutes, which is the origin, and it's an absolute masterclass in storytelling, where we begin with the opening comic book page and zooming in of the Daily Planet in that very sepia black and white time, to the overall coldness and bleak nature of the Kryptonian landscape, and the opening sequence of Jor-El banishing the Kryptonian villains, who of course would be more prominent later on. And then we mix in with the warmth and depth and heart of the Smallville scenes. So much to look at here. Of course, it features one of the most impactful moments of the entire film, which involves Jonathan Kent's death. The indication here is that for all of Superman's powers, there are still certain things that he cannot prevent. And shortly after the funeral, where we see Clark embracing his mother and we get that amazing panning shot away within the Smallville farm, absolutely magnificent cinematography to see. And we follow this with the final message and monologue from Jor-El before we see Clark transform it into Superman for the first time. Again, really heavy on that serious weight and gravitas, and it is truly fantastic. And yes, many people will look at this movie now, 40 years plus overall release, and criticise all of the flying and action sequences, saying that they are aged and very dated, which given the time of the movie's release, that's what you would expect, especially with the overload of superhero content that we have seen certainly for the last 15 to 25 years. Yet despite all of that, the Superman sequences still carry a majesty and an amazement to them. None more so than Superman's rescue of Lois from a helicopter. Just about as much of a Superman-esque moment as you will ever see, and it still resonates today as one of the best ever Superman scenes put to any screen. But we look at also the sequences of Superman's pursuit of the two missiles which have been sent by Lex, where I think the effects are overall absolutely fantastic as we see him chasing it down or flying it down, reaching the exhaust, shooting from the missile and then lifting it up into space before flying to attack the other missile. It absolutely looks still fantastic today, and of course would have been groundbreaking at the time of all release. We talk of all of the great characterizations and the cast of actors, again just giving the film that extra weight and importance, whether it was Marlon Brando as the stoic Joel controversially receiving $3 million for around 5 minutes work. You had, of course, Terence Stamp's vicious General Zod, who would, of course, have far more prominence in Superman 2, released a couple of years later. Margot Kidder's savvy, brass, cynical Lois Lane, still for me the best live-action iteration of the character. We, of course, have to mention the late, great Gene Hackman, multi-Oscar winner, coming off his very prolific run, including movies such as The French Connection, here being very charismatic as Superman's most famous villain in Lex Luthor. You then, of course, have to mention John Williams' iconic and transcendent and integral musical score, providing all of the grandeur and awe of the main theme itself. Not only the most recognisable superhero theme of all time, but also one of the most recognisable themes just in general culture. You simply cannot deny it, whether you are a Superman fan or not. It literally screams Superman as soon as those opening horns start playing, once more representing the character in every single way, and no other musical theme has come close to matching it. But for all of those mentions, there's a prime reason that this film works, the special ingredient and the heartbeat, and that is, of course, the immortal Christopher Reeve. Out of all of the many big name A-list actors at the time considered for the lead role, many including the likes of Clint Eastwood, John Travolta, Sylvester Stallone, Robert Redford and Burt Reynolds, the decision to cast an unknown actor proved to be perhaps the most inspired of all. As in the role as Clark Kent and Superman in live action, Christopher Reeve embodied the character like nobody else has done before and nobody else has done since. Standing tall at 6'3" and following a strict training regime, he looked like Superman, he sounded like Superman, he carried the right amount of conviction, authority and sincerity, yet humility and earnest and charm, all of those quintessential elements of the character, and Reeve just personified all of that and then some. And a character like Superman at the time of this movie's release would have been very difficult to pull off, but Reeve absolutely does it. His biggest feat was making you completely believe in the character, never descending it into parody or comedy. You took him seriously in everything he did, everything he said, and every action that he takes. And that's exactly what you should do with Superman. Now, I don't like to throw the term perfection around when talking about movies. Yes, there are certain films and television series that come close to matching it, but I firmly believe that Christopher Reeve's Superman is literally perfection, without question the greatest and most iconic interpretation of Superman, and also the greatest superhero movie casting of all time. For all of the movie's other merits which I've mentioned, its overall impact and power just wouldn't be there without Christopher Reeve. And when talking of the impact of the movie itself, it was absolutely massive, truly landmark and integral. Despite being at the time the most expensive film of all time, with a budget of around $55 million, it was a colossal success, grossing over $300 million at the box office, and really setting the benchmark of how big a comic book movie truly could be if it was taken seriously. Many critics loved the sense of seriousness, grandeur, as I mentioned before, saying Christopher Reeve was the pitch-perfect role for the character, as well as praising the many sequences and also the heart and charm that carried alongside the film. Of course, the legacy of the film is long-standing and still resonates today. That has proven itself with all of the marketing of the upcoming James Gunn's version, which absolutely riffs of the 1978 film, a bit too blatantly for my particular taste, but the resonance is still there all the same. And of course, the impact was felt many years after. We would shortly follow this film with the sequel, Superman 2, which for me is the superior story. And of course, we all know that both this first film and that sequel was filmed back to back. We would get a further 2 installments following Christopher Reeve, both in 1983 and later on, more disastrously, in 1987 with Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. And whether you look at all following iterations, whether it would be the 90s series Lois and Clark, Smallville from the 2000, and especially Superman Returns in 2006, nearly all Superman iterations following this film connect to the original in some way, shape, or form, whether it's certain sequences or indeed the iconic John Williams score. And this is really the ultimate sign of what I would call true transcendence, true legacy, true lasting impact. For a film that was released coming close now to 50 years, the fact that many Superman fans and critics in general still hold it to be the true gold standard and ultimate example of a Superman story and indeed a comic book interpretation. And yes, when I look at this film, it really is still the godfather of superhero movies. Now, yes, there are certain flaws. Perhaps it is around 15 to 20 minutes too long. There are certain scenes that are prolonged. When we look at the Joel monologue before Clark becomes Superman, the whole flying sequence involving Lois and Superman across Metropolis, whilst Gene Hackman carries a charismatic presence, this iteration of Lex Luthor is not my favourite. A bit too silly in terms of his overall plot and ambitions. And yes, we can still hold criticism over the climatic act where we see Superman flying around the world reversing time. But I still believe overall, when you look at this film and how it embodies the character, it truly is close to a masterpiece. Only really surpassed by the upcoming sequel, Superman 2. But despite of that, Superman, the movie, 40 years plus after its release, still really remains the ultimate visualization of what still remains the greatest superhero character in all of pop entertainment and culture. So there's some more thoughts and feelings on Superman the movie from 1978. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As mentioned, I will be shortly going through the rest of the sequels, including the superior Superman 2, so look out for all of that content within the channel on the future. But if you have any other further suggestions regarding any other movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within this channel, then also let me know within the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please consider hitting like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.